Joey. This week I am joined by Neil
Hello.
and by Dom. How are you both?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm well, thanks.
Dom,
I'm well.
Dom, remind me where you've just come back from.
New Zealand. Well, it's been a month now, so yeah.
Good time?
Se- it was a great time. It was enjoyable. It being summer, and yeah, it was just a great time exploring a country on the other side of the world and where they conveniently speak English for you, which is always nice.
Yeah. Magnifique. Okay, right. So, moments of the month then. It's a month that's flown by because it's been quite good, hasn't it? So I imagine we'll
Yeah.
be littered with options. Who would like to go first out of Dom and of Neil?
I can go first.
Go for it.
Both of mine are from the same game. One of them is football related and one is related to a reaction to football. So
Okay.
both from Sunderland game because we beat Sunderland and that is always magic.
Yes.
The football thing is the goal, the second goal with including Hamer's pass, which is basically all I really want to focus on. I love splitting teams open with one pass, and that is like the epitome of that. It was absolutely beautiful. Very good goal, and it was a lovely goal. Just to couldn't quite tell it had gone in from my angle. It just sort of like there was a ripple from somewhere, and it's like, oh, it's in, which is a shame because you always want to see the ball hit the net. But my absolute moment of the month is Mark Robbins' reaction to the first goal, because poor old Mark doesn't really show much energy at the best of times. And the only other time I can recall him, it's a couple of times, Preston, when we scored that last minute goal where he did the old fist pump thing, which was great. The only other time where he wanted to show emotion was against Notts County, where he was then told off for trying to show emotion by AD Vivash. So this was nice, where Vivash was nowhere near him, and he was able to really let himself go, and it's quite the iconic moment for him. I was delighted to see it.
Beautiful. Dom?
Yeah, so having been away from it all and like obviously because of the time difference, just there was no chance of watching commentary over that period. So I just like over January, I think the Wrexham game was the last one I saw of us, and then it was almost quite nice during that month to go, oh, did we lose to Norwich? Okay, kind of expected that. And then getting back to it, a proper welcome back to football, Luton at home. It's a bit cold, a bit miserable, concede in the first minute, and then watch 80 minutes of the opposition time wasting and kicking and referee making terrible decisions. Like, yeah, this is what you missed, mate. You thought you got away from it, and this is what football's really like. And yeah, I got back to it, and yeah, at that point I was like, oh, season's over, so I'm not gonna bother going to midweek games anymore. And then we won 3 in a row, so
yeah.
that learned me.
5 points off Luton in 6th. How?
Yeah.
We've done it to quite a few teams, haven't we? We've beaten quite a few teams, haven't we, up there this year, like in some form. Like we beat Middlesbrough, Sheffield United. Did we beat Millwall? We did, didn't we?
Yeah, we beat Millwall recently,
Yeah,
at home.
exactly. When we're
And
good, we're good. And then we just, unfortunately, we have bad luck with injuries. That's my assessment of the whole season, basically.
do you think?
I think it's close. When optimum team, we've got a lot about us, I think. And then things just get muddled up, and we've just find that's when we sometimes find a way, and sometimes we look very, very mid-table. It's a tricky one for us. I think we don't bring it on ourselves. I mean, we're not broadly crap or anything. I think we're actually really good when we get things motoring, but just at the wrong moments. Certainly this season, it just seems at the wrong moments. There's been a gaping hole in place, and then we just have to try and patch it up, and we end up not really looking ourselves.
So what do you think has been the main thing that's caused us to be good in February then? I think it's fair to say that we've been good in February, isn't it? We didn't lose at all in February, I don't think.
No, unbeaten. No, we did. We lost to West Brom.
Lost to West Brom right at the very start. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So it's I mean, a lot of it is just, I think McNally, weirdly, and McFadden as a two at the back, bringing some real solidity and some actual dominance has helped. I mean, for whatever reason, the guys before, while individually probably good players, we lacked any kind of authority without McFadzean, and we just showed that we needed it. So, I think those two, McNally certainly coming into the team, has shown a real strength on the right hand side. For me, he's like Dom Hyam 2.0. He's just that level of quality. And then beyond that, I think Hamer and Gyökeres as well. They're just, these are all individual players again, but they're just, they've stepped up and played those games where they've started to kind of show their qualities. And it's just been a little bit of rhythm, which has helped. I think people use that term all the time, but it kind of has helped. And nothing more complex than that, really. We haven't played stunningly well. I don't think we're anywhere close to the version of us where, where O'Hare's in the team and everything's really kind of clicking and quite dynamic. But yeah, I just think just plugging a few of the gaps which are really glaring from the previous month has kind of helped us. And I just think McFadzean generally as a personality on the pitch really kind of sets the tone for the team in general, and just means the other players don't have to do the things that they don't really want to do. So Callum Doyle doesn't want to have to be a leader right now. He wants to be a young kid learning his game and drilling those passes through without having to worry about shouting at somebody next to him. He doesn't have to do that anymore, and that's helpful.
So when I saw Paul recently, I had suggested to him that the return of Carl McFadzean may have had some impact into it. But as you would expect, Paul completely shot that down.
Sure.
And had pulled out his folder of stats that he keeps and told me that McFadzean hadn't actually been involved in a significant, like prior to him coming back from injury, the games that he had played earlier in the season tended to not have less goals conceded when he was there. But I was like, well, that doesn't make any difference as to what it is now.
Yeah, that's not a stat.
I think that was it. I think there is a number of different things. But does that make sense? Is what he was saying? Like the average goals per game conceded when he was playing earlier in the season didn't get loads worse when he came out of the team. But conversely, that doesn't take into consideration the fact that it has got loads better since he's come back.
Yeah, there's more to it than just the goals conceded, isn't it? There's everything about it.
Yeah. And I also think that, but I think it's a number of things. I think for me, admittedly from my sort of very parent-laden vantage point of I follow, is I think that it's not just McFadzean and it's not just McNally, but it's also the fact that they have come in and been very, very good individually. But the players that they replaced, there's such a chasm between the quality of them, and without wanting to be disrespectful to Panzo and to Rose, although obviously it is they had been causing us big problems being on the pitch. And they've not only been replaced by two players who have played much better, maybe temporarily, maybe long term, but that they're significantly above the standard of those. You talked there about McNally coming in and doing the job that Hyam had done, but I know it's early doors, but is he not quite a lot better than Hyam?
Yeah, when you look at the individual attributes, he's quicker and stronger than Hyam. His tackling is just stunning. It seems to, every time he's one-on-one, he'll be the one to come out with the ball. So I think, pound for pound, he probably is better. I feel slightly premature throwing anything more at him.
Of course. It's only been a handful of games. I just can't think of a foot that he's put wrong. And I thought that yesterday, which is I don't think any of us really want to talk to about in great detail. But I do think he was one of maybe two players that, again, just completely stood out head and shoulders. And Dom, was it you that said that? We might have talked on WhatsApp or something where in a couple of games ago, he'd also gave the ball and burst up the pitch. And was it you that was saying that actually you thought that might be something that we'd have seen more often from him?
Yeah. Just like from his time at Oxford, he was someone who very much wanted to carry the ball forward. It's kind of interesting with him, sort of like on the ball. We talk about it because he's a very good technical defender, but it's dribbling the ball is much better. His dribbling is much better than his passing. There's been a few times when he's tried to get the ball out to Norton Cuffy and given it away, whereas those surging runs he's made, he's had about 3 or 4 of them over the past month, which are much more impressive. So yeah, it's sort of interesting because you've got Doyle on one side who's capable of absolutely pinging them, and then McNally, his sort of contribution to getting into the midfield is more likely to be actually just stepping into the midfield and sort of taking opposition teams by surprise, sort of like your old-fashioned overlapping fullback.
You mentioned another player in there that I wanted to talk about a little bit, if it's not jumping on too quickly. So, what have you both made of? In fact, if we start with you, Dom, what have you made with of Brook Norton-Cuffy so far?
I quite like him. He's a good outlet down the right. He's someone who can carry the ball well. Defensively, he does seem to have issues with positioning, maybe maintaining a little bit of concentration. But I think, so especially in that Millwall game, where if you can get him up the pitch and get him one-on-one against opposition defenders, he can be quite useful. I remember when he signed, I was looking at like some of his stats, and it was just like all the sort of most of the stats were sort of like in the like 40, 50th percentile, and then it was just like dribbling 99. I think that quite describes him well. Sort of very, very strongly dribbling. Everything else has work to do.
I've wondered in some games whether he's even been given a defensive remit. And I don't mean that as like a sort of facetious point, but that it doesn't strike me that there's much of that going on, to the point where I just wonder whether he's just like, that's fine, your job is to get us up the pitch.
Yeah.
Go on, Neil, sorry. Neil's either frozen or he's thinking incredibly hard.
I was probably doing both.
There
I
we
think
go.
I'm back now.
He's back.
I think he's just working on it. He's just working on his game like he should be as a young kid. I think, like, on the face of it, you look at him, he has a lot of stuff that you can potentially get excited about. I just think that there are steps to his development, and right now he is doing the things in terms positionally. He is an outlet. There's no complaining about that. He's always there, and he's doing it well to kind of make sure he's available. I think that the bits where people and our own players potentially will get frustrated with him is he's still working on the consistency side of his game. You know, his dribbling is very sporadic. He rarely looks like he has the ball under his spell, but that doesn't stop him from being relentless in his ability to want to keep trying it. And maybe that might just be something that kind of comes over time. It kind of reminds me, it's too obvious to say Dujon Sterling for stupid reasons, but he kind of reminds me of him in the way that he started, where he kind of over time became more and more comfortable and confident in his own ability and ability to take the ball forward and go with it. And like similar to the other loanee, Wilson Esbram, where you're starting to see glimpses of him at least wanting to have the ball longer than just a split second, and trying to carry it a little bit more, because that confidence is going to come. And you don't know why it takes people maybe a little bit longer, but I think both of them they're players that we're going to have to accept are very young and are trying the hardest to get better with us. And we saw Gyökeres yesterday give Norton-Cuffy an absolute mouthful for making a relatively poor pass. It wasn't the worst pass in the world. There might be a bit more of that to come, really, because I think he's just going to be that kind of player who is pretty. He's pretty sporadic, but there have been moments. He set up the Norwich goal through good play, where he got down the right and kind of drilled it in. He has put in some decent balls into the box, so he is getting into positions. But if we're expecting this kind of perfect model of a right wing back who looks really, really kind of silky, I don't think we're going to get that. We're going to get a relatively bumbling player who may and may not sometimes get past the player or not, and you just kind of have to take that for what it is.
There's a good chance Rotherham would have kept him if he was the complete wing back, wouldn't you?
You'd imagine it would. Yeah, there must have been some reason why they didn't keep this excellent young lad from Arsenal.
I watched the Rotherham game, and as often is the case, it's the opposition commentary on, and they would seem to be like the thrust of their commentary every time the ball came near him is they were like, "What a lovely lad! What a great player with a
You
good
don't want to hear
future
that, do
ahead of him." But there was they were like, "Glad he's not here anymore, but really do wish him all the very best."
you? Say more
They were
about
like,
that. Yeah.
too much of a liability for us, but what a great lad. Going to be
A
fantastic
liability
at
for
some point in the
Rotherham
future.
as well.
You're just like,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think he's going to play for Arsenal. That's my big call here. I think maybe
It's
there might be a step up for him.
it's a real shame because it's almost like I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about him without that coming out. Like when me and Paul talked about him the other night, that was the first thing that Paul said about him. I wonder to what extent we got spoiled by Ian Matson. Like
Maybe a little.
I don't know whether that's completely reset our expectations of what a young Premier League fullback can do for you. Because I think even when he first came through, we were like, "Oh, this guy is good." But by the end of the season, I think everyone was in agreement that actually this is a very good player. And then this season, he's been absolutely outstanding. I don't
His
know
first
whether
game though
now.
was mad though, was it? Do you remember his first game? He looked so much like a child. He was really
Yeah, and
raw, huge.
he was far from perfect when he came in, but he got very
Yeah.
good very quickly, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And there's still some people who
Um,
don't rate him. So yeah.
Mm.
which I mean, I might be wrong because I don't watch Burnley every week, but yeah, that'd have to be a really mad opinion to have now, wouldn't it? Hasn't it? My admittedly fairly lay understanding is that he's been one of the better players in the Championship, full stop, this season, as opposed to
Yeah.
just in his position. Uh, so Norton Cuffy, fine. I guess the question with Norton Cuffy is that, admittedly, with the sort of what do we think? 10 games? Dom, you're usually on top of this. How many games has he played for us? Do you know?
It's like 7 or 8.
7 or 8, which admittedly isn't very many at all. But if we have got the option as it stands to keep him for next season on loan for another season, how happy are you going into the season next season with him as first choice right wing back?
I wouldn't mind it. I think we could do a lot worse. And you'd imagine like 6 months here plus a pre-season plus a whole season to develop. He's going to be a lot better player than he is now. I mean, he's 19 years old. That's incredibly young to have played championship football for a whole season. I think that needs to be taken into account with Norton Cuffy. Kind of depends on who else we might think is available in the summer, but it would be far from a terrible scenario to have him for another season, in my view.
I think that's a fair appraisal, Neil.
Yeah. I mean, the version that we have now is a young lad. So if we just look into the future and hope there's some development there, and the good things that we see from him continue into like the future in the same kind of way that we saw from Sterling. Like if the ratings from the people who know are as true as we think they are, like he is supposedly a good player. He's a lot of people rated him very highly, so he came to us. So yeah, I mean, if he's better than he is currently, then I would take him. I think you have to be harsh in your assessment, and when you say like you can't, it's the version we've at the moment, which is quite messy. That doesn't sustain you for a whole season. So if there's some improvement and you have to take a punt on improvement, then yeah, you would go for it. But that's for people who see him day in, day out to kind of make a call on.
Okay.
What about you?
I mean, I know it's my question, but that so much hinges on what is going to be a very, very, very interesting summer. Because one, you'd have to have strong expectations that a lot of money is going to come in for. I mean, let's face it, Gyökeres. It's very, very hard to imagine a situation where he doesn't leave this summer, albeit that there's talk of offering him a contract. But I think, as we've talked about a few times, I don't know why he would sign.
That's got to be. There will always be a clause in that. Like it's just protection, isn't it? Other than anything else, like we will stay you at this point.
But then why wouldn't he go now?
I don't know. I'm just
He's
mad nonsense. Like, there's got to be a reason for it.
A Premier League club would offer him presumably triple or quadruple the wages that we would be able to offer him, and he would have, the career progression and everything else. It's just And as well, it must be rubbish living in Cov. Even if he's living in Birmingham, it's like
He lives in
still
Lem.
not good, is it? Does
Of
he live
course
in
he
Lem?
lives
Does
in
he?
Lem. Yeah, I've
Glorious,
seen him walking
glorious
around.
Lem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, but then we've got the potential of quite a lot of money coming into the club. There's also the Doug millions, but I, we think we talked about this in a previous podcast. To some extent, you don't know how much money will be available to rebuild the squad, and the squad is going to need unbelievable levels of rebuilding over the summer because of the amount of players that are out of contract or are going to want to leave because they're too good to stay. And I wonder whether we could probably maybe get a better player, but I also wonder at some point whether the familiarity of a player that had been here for a year might actually stand us in good stead. I wonder to what extent Ben Sheaf got much better in inverted commas because he'd been here for a year and was more familiar and had got used to the place. And then in his second season, maybe just it's hard in your first year when you're a young lad to be somewhere. And so you could either try and gamble on someone that might be a bit better, or actually, do you re-sign a player that knows the ropes, knows the teammates, has a view of the team, and actually they're just much better. So as usual, a rambling non-answer, but such is life, I suppose, isn't it? Right. This time last month, we were sat here evaluating February's fixtures as being like not preferable, I guess, in a sort of poorly worded way, right? And we've ended up, if you take what West Brom out of it, which is a very poor way of reviewing these statistics, but I'm going to do it. We won 3 and drew 2. So I'm going to go through with you now, unless, well, you probably know already who we've got in March. Only 4 games in March, which feels strange. And that is Huddersfield Town away.
Yes.
Hull at home, Wigan away, and Blackpool away. If we go through their places in the table, Hull are in 16th.
Yeah, the rest are the bottom 3.
And then the rest are the bottom 3, yeah.
Oh my God.
And as well, none, I mean, as you would expect with the bottom 3, not in great form. It's not like they're on the rise. And they're all on 31 points. And Hull, likewise, haven't won in their last 4. So what do we think we're capable of this next 4 games, Neil?
It's the annoying caveat, isn't it? Like,
look at you doing everything you can to not be like, we need to win the next 4 games.
well, before last night, I would have said that, but then I'm just so upset about the fact that we literally have a jumble sale of players now on the pitch again. Like at all of that attacking, the way we finished last night, there's no way that Robbins would ever conjure up that team. That's just not something he has in his mind. And now we don't have any attacking midfielder that he can really trust. So he said it himself, and I felt sorry for him listening to him, but he was like, we've just got to try and come up with another plan now. And ordinarily, you play in the bottom 4, us and me, certainly me being me, thinking, oh, well, there we go, we've got some wins to come. But then that's happened, and then we just don't. I'm just worried that I don't know what version of us is going to turn up again, because as much, and I always try and make a distinction between the fact that we criticise individual players because we want them to do more and we want to do better. And Jamie Allen's the perfect example of someone who, when I look at the detail, I think longer term and just pound for pound, we can do better than him. And he does make lots of mistakes. But I also don't want him not being around and then we don't have anybody in place of him. That's not good either. I'd prefer him in the team because it feels more steady and everybody seems more familiar. So, and again, I've gone the long way around, but I think we are capable of winning games, but that's only if we get some players back. If Sheaf's on the way back, we might start to feel a little bit stronger. But it sounds to me like all of our attacking midfield options are basically buggered now for the season. So, well, not season, sorry, but for a good period of games.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future.
So I don't know what you do. I mean, you go with Godden and Gyökeres up front, and then you just find somebody to play behind them, or you try something totally different. You try Eccles, Hamer, and Sheaf if he's back soon enough, and suddenly that feels somewhat normal. But yeah, I'm more worried about the fact that we haven't got players than the teams that we're playing. Ordinarily, you'd think we could beat them.
Did Godden hurt himself last night at all?
I think he just couldn't manage the 90, could he? That's him right now.
Oh yeah.
Probably
for some reason, I couldn't remember whether he picked up an injury. So in lieu of having any attacking midfielders, Dom, what on earth are we going to do?
Yeah, I think it's sticking past. It's not just that the number of players out. Is we don't know when they'll be back, and yeah, from the sounds of things, Palmer, O'Hare, and Allen could well be out for the majority of the rest of the season, and that's a big problem for us because we've got to the point where we're playing Wilson Esperand in midfield, and he's doesn't look like a central midfielder in the same way that we pushed Ian Matson forward last season and it kind of worked. It doesn't have that same feeling, and
No.
unless we're suddenly going to get someone back fit, or there's someone that we don't know of in the under 23 squad who can step up, then
Question, Dom. Is there such a thing as an emergency loan because you don't like the strikers and you don't want to play them there instead? Is that a thing that can we say we just don't want to play Sean Maguire, so we need an emergency loan?
We need to pay the £5 for the Football Manager real-time editor.
What I mean, in terms of, and we've had a few recently, in terms of strangest signings, what happened with Sean Maguire?
That's so much of a. I'm going to get him in because he was good at some point. He brought him in, and he's taken one look, hasn't he, or maybe multiple looks, and he does not feel him one bit, does he? You can just tell.
You can only think that there was a situation where he was like, I want to bring in an attacking midfielder, and then the recruitment department have been like, well, look, we've got 10 players on the list here. This player is an absolute slam dunk. He's going to cost like 2 million, and they'll be like, let's go down a bit. They'll be like, well, this guy is questionable. He's had some injuries, blah blah blah.
But he's
maybe
free.
a couple of 100,000, and they're like, further down. They'll be like, well, look, this Preston have said they'll pay this guy's wages if we take him for 6 months. They'll be like, that sounds like what we've got the money for.
Yeah. Show us what you can do, kid. And then he's just
I just feel sorry for sort of everybody in that situation, though, because presumably he's come. He came and he was like, I really want to earn a contract here, straight away. And it's taken 3 weeks before Robbins was like, this guy is not up to speed.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like, and the things he's come out and said about him as well. He's just like he needs to step it up. It's like, God, you don't want to hear that, do you? Like it's probably in the trainer's head. This is me trying my hardest. I've got to say more.
Robbins has got his arm around him while he's saying it. He's like, this guy has got to do a lot better, and he's got to do it now. Yeah. Because presumably he's been at Preston for like 4 or 5 years, and he's not that old, is he? He must have family. He must like his family home and everything set up there, just so he can come here for 6 months and just get humiliated by Robbins.
To not make it on the pitch.
Well, to not make it on the pitch under the circumstances that we're in at the moment.
I know.
Like, how do you go into training and see Josh Wilson-Esperand like with whatever toys 19-year-olds have these days, and just be like, yeah, I thought you did really well in my position yesterday. Yeah, very, very strange. So the other thing that I guess is, and I know that you're robbing Peter to pay Paul because it'll cause us to have a conversation about who would fill in for him. But one of the interesting things would be to try Gus a bit further up. Now, my gut feeling is I think that it's a bit of a fantasy to imagine that Gus would be more effective further up the pitch. But it's hard to not imagine that he will be asked to do that job at some point soon. What do you two think about the prospect of that?
I think it will be it's like a sticking plaster approach to it. So it's lesser of all the evils. Like, I think certain players play in a certain way and they just suit it. So Gus being able to drive from deep is what makes him so good. And it's like the illusion sometimes of throwing somebody further forward because, they'll just be there. And while I think he's good enough and he won't play crap, I just think you might not necessarily get the same from him. And this isn't exactly the same example, but another player who I felt like that was with Jordan Shipley, where we just kept, let's get Shipley close to the goal, close to the goal. And that man never once played well in the number 10 position. He just didn't have it in him. But when he sat deep, or even when he sat on the left, that just suited him better. And sometimes positions just suit players better. And the same goes, like Bayliss was another example. We kept trying to throw him right behind the strikers. And it just doesn't quite suit him being that surrounded. Some players, they revel in it. And after all that, I think he might still try it, because if he's got the opportunity to bring Sheaf back in and he can finally trust Eccles in the middle, suddenly he might do something because it feels more it's got more authority about it and more experience. But ideally, I'd never be doing that. I'd much prefer Hamer to give him the exact role that he wants to play.
I think in the same way as we talked about with McNally and McFadzean coming in as well, I think it's not just about Hamer, becoming less effective by moving up a place. It's the fact that whoever comes in that midfield, then, as you've really astutely said, isn't able to do that job that he does, which is the kind of whoever has got the ball in defence, and it doesn't matter how much or little space he's got, you can give him the ball and he will advance us the 20 yards that we need to then find Gyökeres, which basically he is. I think we've gone mad about Gyökeres this season, and quite rightly so. But I just think over the last month, Gus has just been absolutely unbelievable, and that the whole team is literally just. It was originally try and get the ball as fast to Gyökeres as possible, but the better we've been, I think, has been get the ball to Gus and then let him take it a bit, and then find Gyökeres immediately afterwards. I think he's been really brilliant. I just find it hard to believe that he won't be pushed forward just because of the personnel that we've got.
Yeah, exactly.
Neil, you mentioned Josh Eccles there and the word trustworthy in the same sentence. Dom, any view on Eccles since he's been reinstated?
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with him. I think he's come in and played a slightly different role to what Sheaf has been playing, where Sheaf, I think a lot of the time over the past 2 seasons, he's been sort of that auxiliary playmaker at times alongside Harmer in midfield, and it wasn't uncommon to see Sheaf popping up at the edge of the area to ping a hopeful shot in the general direction of the goal occasionally, but they would try and dovetail those sort of in that classic Lampard and Gerrard could. We all hoped they could do it 20 years ago in that fashion, where one's sitting, one's pushing forward, and they take it in turns. They'd been swapping around those roles, whereas Eccles has come in and played almost exclusively as a holding midfielder, quite often just sitting right in front of that defence, and he's actually quite good at just mopping up loose balls. He's got surprisingly long legs to get on the end of stuff, and he's got
surprising bastard as well. He's been quite spicy in a lot of the games recently.
Was it him a few years ago who backed up Jody Jones? Jody Jones got in a little bit of a scuffle, and Eccles was the first one on the scene, like 18 years old. That was it, wasn't it? And at that point, I was like, "You in no way look like you're tough. Like I'd fancy it, but like he's getting involved, isn't he?"
I really like it. Sorry, Dom, I cut you off there, but he's been pretty spicy this last month.
Yeah, he covers a good amount of ground. I think the one thing I want to see more from him is on the ball now. I think he has tried to play like some bigger passes a few times over the past month and been caught out slightly. There was a moment last night against Preston where he sort of dallied on the ball and we were nearly punished quite hard for that. And that seems to knock his confidence a little bit. And he's sort of reverted to playing it safe quite a lot recently, whereas I do think he has the talent to be a bit more positive on the ball. He just needs to find that confidence and momentum. But I think it has really helped the defence as well. Just that clarity of having a specific holding midfield player sitting in front of them, and that has allowed Harmer to push forward a lot more, and he's been much more box to box and feeling more free to get right in the face of the opposition in terms of like pressing off the ball. And I think that's just like really helped this system we've got at the moment, where we really relish defending quite deep for quite a lot of the game, because we know we've got Gyökeres on the counter attack to unleash, and usually that eventually works well. So I think almost in losing someone in Sheaf who's sort of technically a better player, because that has brought a more specific like division of labour in the team, that seems to have helped us over the past month.
I think Eccles is like a prime example of a player who will require confidence to finally. I think he's taken longer than most young players to feel like they are suitable for the first team, and maybe like that's down to the fact he's never really played in the middle for us, and he's always been shoved on the right, and he's come on as a sub, and the right helped him because over time he started to feel at least part of the first team. But there's always this kind of this idea that he's only playing like a percentage of his actual kind of capability, because everybody says it. Like Robbins even said the other day that he could be anything he wants to be, which is pretty high praise for any player. But to say that about Josh Eccles suggests that he has some talent, real talent, which I'm sure in training again he'll show endlessly. But then when he gets on the pitch, you saw it the other night. Last night he made a few mistakes and he did go into his shell, like you say. He did that one moment where he was just surrounded and you could see he just froze. He didn't know quite how to deal with that situation, and then he just went back to absolute. I'm just going to get the ball away. I'm just going to pass it backwards. I'm just going to do the things and do the jobs, and that's fine. But if he's going to be the player that he apparently his quality suggests he's going to be, then over time he's really got to start to believe himself and start to feel like he is first team kind of worthy. And it's coming, but it's quite gradual. This feels like a criticism. It's not. It's just I think he's taking more time, and he will take a little bit more time. And once he'll have that one game where he absolutely dominates, and suddenly he feels like he's like Jordan Shipley eventually started doing in League One, where he started bossing all the midfield again. He's just like, there's no reason for Jordan Shipley to really think that you're good enough to be one of the best players in the league in the midfield, but he ended up being that. Maybe Eccles could get there eventually, but I just this is going to be a really good period for him while he's actually the man in control in midfield.
Beautiful. Well, I think we've talked a lot about the players. I mean, we haven't talked about Gyökeres, which feels a bit ludicrous, doesn't it? I suppose overall, but what I don't really know what more we can say.
That's the noise I make.
Is it Millwall? The goal where they've just kicked him all night, and then he's just backed into one of their defenders, just pushed him over, and then sort of turned inside and just hit it from 25.
Oh yeah.
You're like, yeah, he would. The thing is he will do that.
yeah. Don't make
that was another night where I was listening to the Millwall commentary, and even they were like, we did sort of feel like that could happen at some point. You're like, yeah. I don't think there's not many players where he'd do that and be like, yeah, that's been coming. We shouldn't have let him get 30 yards within goal, because it did seem like he could create something out of nothing and just rock it into the bottom corner.
The thing is, he does it so many. Go on, carry on.
No. I mean, it's like I say, we should. The thing is we, to some extent, is that we will look back in however long afterwards and go, God, we really should have enjoyed that more.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we lost Lucas Jukovic, and then who, a very good striker for Cov and had scored a lot of goals that season, and ultimately his loss was what caused us to go down more than anything else, I would say. But that, like, when he'd gone, it was like, God, we're really missing Jukovic. But they're not really comparable players.
No. You said it a few times. He for a lot of the season, a lot of games, has been our attack. He is. It's just like send it somewhere. He will do something with this. That's unique.
This whole season, I can't stop thinking about the goal that he scored against Wigan in that, was it like the 96th minute?
Yeah.
Where we've just booted it to the halfway line. He's headed it up in the air so that he could push one defender over. Then his control for the second takes another out, and then he just runs 50 yards and puts it past the keeper. You're like, yeah, okay. Well, you don't really need. He's the dream for Robbins, because the last thing Robbins wants to do is to put together an attacking plan, is it? So to be able to just say, sort the defence out and then do a big kick up to this big lad up here is an absolute dream. That's what he's been hoping for his entire life. I think that's what he wanted with Baka, wasn't it? But then when Bakayoko turned up, he was just be like, oh yeah, that's
wishful thinking.
Okay. Before we move on to this week's game, I wanted to ask very quickly about not players particularly, but how does a win against Sunderland make you feel?
Always good.
Because there's this very kind of what I think of as a very artificial, online only rivalry that we have with their fans, that I think is a bit of fun. But I think some people are like delighted and angry about Sunderland, and so where do you stand on the spectrum of? Do you just see it as any other game, or do you feel like there's that extra bit of spice about it?
Definitely, but I think you said it right there. It's kind of an online only thing where there isn't really a good enough reason. I mean, they pretend to be annoyed with us from what happened in the 70s, but I'm sure most of them can't really be good monkeys about that. They've got bigger things to worry about. But I just find it funny mainly because we saw them all in that documentary, and that just makes it more realistic just how funny it is when things go wrong. And it's also just they're similar to Newcastle, and they've just got this idea that they are huge and they deserve to be up there and they deserve to be winning all the time, and it's just funny when they don't, and it's fine.
I think also, like you say, with Sunderland Till I Die and things like that, there's an element of it where it's like how Wile E. Coyote might have hated Roadrunner, in that they seem to be much more angry with us than we are about them. But ultimately, whenever we come up against each other, we beat them 5-4 at the Stadium of Light. Or they drop an anvil on their head somehow and.
Yeah.
About it.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah. Somebody sent me a clip the other day of it looked like it was at Wembley, but might have been in like an FA Cup or a League Cup semi-final from quite a while ago, where it's Sunderland fans and Jimmy Hill walks past.
Yes.
There's the Sunderland fans going insane, and he's blowing them kisses.
Yeah, I was like, everybody else just thinks this is really funny.
That seems to be that's why I find the rivalry so sort of so sweet, because it seems to be like, they've got a reason to dislike us, but it does seem that from our side it's like this is just funny more than
it's ever such a laugh, isn't it?
Yeah,
you can't take it too seriously,
right? No, well, I mean, I really enjoy beating anybody, but I think when it's them, I do like it that little bit more.
We heard that on the podcast, didn't we, as well? Your appearance. It was basically, was it like a half an hour of you talking about Sunderland, which
I didn't think it was going to be anywhere. I don't normally agree to do anything full stop while I was on half term with a lad, and because it was Sunderland, and that lad was quite nice, so I agreed to do it.
Yeah.
And I just thought it'd be 5 minutes, and then it was ages. But
brilliant.
It was a bit of fun, isn't it? Right, okay, so now speaking of bit of fun, this probably will not be based on last week's evidence, but we've got a new game again for this week. This is the second now. I think this will probably be the second and last new game. I think we might end up leaning on this quite a while, but we'll see how it goes. Are you aware of the 1990s BBC game show starring Bob Monkhouse called Wipeout?
I'm aware of it. I have a visual in my head, but the rules are sketchy.
So, and I think I might also be thinking about something else. So let's see whether we can sort of, basically. So I think we might have done a variation of this at some point. But Wipeout was you'd get like a category, and then you would have to take it in turns to say how many of that thing you could name, and then you'd like bid against each other. So Is that something else?
I feel like there are about 3 different shows, all of it like pointless, and there's other one on like ITV. Yeah, vaguely. The same premise. Has the same premise basically. You've got to get a certain amount of answers or bid. And
exactly.
All that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Right. So what I'll do is I'm going to reveal the central conceit of this week, and then Neil, you'll go first. You're going to say I can name X number. Then either Dom will say I can do one more, and then you can auction it out. Or Don might say, go on then, smart ass, you can do it. If you name them, then you're golden. But if you make a mistake, all that Dom has to do is name one correct, and he steals a point off you.
Yeah, okay. I can't see any way where this doesn't end up embarrassing for me, but we'll give it a go.
No, 100%. I mean, I'm really glad that I'm not on the answering end of this. Okay? This week, and probably all future weeks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a common first name. All you need to do is name ex or current Coventry City players that have that name. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to have to check Twitter while we're going through this, because I don't think, as with everything in life, this was an idea of mine. I think somebody who I'm going to talk slowly while I have a look. I think Tom S on. Oh no, he didn't actually. He was so actually what happened was he suggested a different game. I remembered that when I had a job where I'd got a lot of time on my hands, is I'd created a load of Sporkle quizzes. One of the things that he suggested was a Sporkle quiz that I'd made. Then I remembered that I made this particular Sporkle quiz,
Okay.
which I've got in front of me, which is can you name all the Coventry City players called Jordan?
Of course, it was going to be Jordan.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then I remembered that Jim Brown, our beloved Jim Brown, created the Coventry City FC player database search where you can search just by things like first name,
Right.
which
Okay.
means that I think with some sort of certainty means that we can probably get reasonably reasonably safe answers on this. So I'm going to start off with Jordan. And I'm going to do you think I tell you how many Jordans there have been, and then you can say how many out of them that you can get? I think that's probably the safe way
Go
of
on
doing
then.
it.
Go on.
Yeah.
So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Jordans in Coventry City's history. Neil, you go first in terms of the bidding.
Oh,
I think as well, to save the listener from the sort of interminable nature of these things, I think the second that you go for 20 seconds without naming a Jordan, that's when it passes over.
I think you're very, very generous. Thank you. I'm going to bid 4.
It's a
Steady.
strong start. Okay. Dom, do you want to go above 4 or do you want to let Neil loose on?
Okay, I can do 5.
Oh man.
I like it.
Okay. You can do 5. You just said you can do 5 as well, which means that I can.
He's gonna absolutely rattle these off, Neil.
Okay, I can.
You've dug your own grave there.
Okay, well that means I can definitely do. Oh, I can't do 6. God's sake, go for it. Do it.
I should be absolutely clear as well, and I think you're going to know who I'm talking about here, Dom. What I'm looking for here is Jordan.
The classic Jordan, yeah.
Okay.
It's what a lot of people call the classic Jordan. You're absolutely right. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Dom, you've got to name 5 Jordans, please.
Okay, so Jordan Shipley,
Correct.
Jordan Willis,
Correct.
Jordan Maguire-Drew,
Lovely stuff, yeah.
Jordan Stewart,
Nice.
Man, that is excellent.
and okay, so that is 4, 5.
I think you can showboat here a little bit.
Okay, 5. So when I said I could name 5, I'll be honest with you, I was going for the alternate Spain of Jordan
Well done,
thrown in.
you screwed him. Well done.
Yeah.
Are we in the countdown yet?
Well, I think you've got 5 seconds left.
Yeah, so I'm not going to kill people dead air. So yeah.
Neil.
Well, I have 2. I was going to go for Turnbull or Clark.
Ugh.
You can Jorgen Turdbull, absolutely one of the answers. One of the most reliable bids in all of the English Football League, and
Indeed.
of course Jordan Clark. Jordans you could have also had included Henderson.
Henderson, oh, nice one, yeah.
Jordan Henderson, yeah. You could have had Jordan Ponticelli.
Oh yeah.
And I think the one that I would have struggled with would have been Jordan Young.
Oh, was that like a young player?
Yeah.
So have
We
I,
signed him from
much like
Swindon.
a Jamie Allen shot, won that by mistake?
Yeah. Yeah, I was Jamie Allen's. Well, I was going to say first touch at Rotherham.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Brilliant.
I think probably for the best that we don't have a lot of Jamie Allen chat. But that's been removed from what we've needed anyway. Right, okay. Neil, that makes it 1-0 to you. Next,
Brilliant.
we are going for Coventry City Richards. And I can tell you that this is going to be trickier because, unbelievably, there has only been, I think it's 4, there is only 4 Coventry City Richards. Dom, you get to start the bidding on the Coventry City Richards.
Okay. 2.
Neil.
Yeah, I think I can do 3.
Question is, Dom, do you feel confident doing all 4?
No.
That's probably the smartest thing.
Yeah. I've abandoned my confidence. I'm
But the thing
going
is,
back to
the
the
thing is,
5-yard passes.
the thing here is going to be about, can you now, like, I think Neil will probably get 2. Then it's a case of, well, actually, no, Neil might nail the 3. Neil, let's see it. What have you got?
I've got 3 that I know. So Richard Duffy, Richard Shaw, and Richard Spong.
Now then, wow, this is an interesting one. So I think
Did he not play for us? Are we? Oh no.
Well, Spong, as we know, is a Swedish footballer who plays as a midfielder. But I'm checking Wikipedia now to see whether, because he doesn't appear on the FPA database.
Did he not play for us?
And I've got to tell you, Neil, according to Wikipedia, Coventry City between 1999 and 2003, no appearances, no goals.
Can I just question then? Did Jordan Young play for us?
Jordan Young did play for us.
What did he do?
Checker trade.
In the checker
get
trade.
out of it, Jordan Young. You ruined this.
I think. Well, there you go. So I mean, Dom, to nip in and steal, I think you've got two classic Richards here.
Oh, I've got one as well. Damn it!
Richie Partridge.
See, again, unfortunately, this is going to seem like I'm being terribly pedantic. We've got a Richard who hasn't played that's ruled you out, and as with the Jordan Thompson, who I assume you realise is with the O,
Yeah.
I'm afraid Richies are quite simply not Richards.
Yeah. So
and he actually is a Richie.
You're being rich hard on your line here.
So this is a landslide as it stands. Neil, that's 2-0 to you. Do you care to share your additional Richard with us?
I was going to say Richard Wood. I should have said that normally.
Richard Wood, completely, yeah. I'm going to give a bonus point to anybody who can come up with the last Richard, because it is a very gettable Richard.
Okay, you have to give us 10 seconds.
I will tell you that this Richard was in the team that went down from the Championship most recently.
So that was Richard Wood and Richard. Oh no, I'm definitely not getting that one. I can't. I've gone blank.
Centre back next to Martin Craney that season. Maybe fond of a drink.
Keogh.
You should have got Richard Keogh by now.
Yeah, really should have got Keogh. Yeah.
Right, final round. We are going for Coventry City. And again, this is going to be a bit of a trap here, which I didn't mean it to be. But it turns out that when you look at like Paul, all of the Pauls are about 5 million years old. And if you look for like, I don't know, Johnson, there's only one of them. So I'm going to go for, what I'm looking for here is one of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Stevens with a PH that we have had wear sky blue. And Neil, it's back to you for your bid, please.
2.
Coward. Dom?
No, I haven't got 2.
I'm going to spice this up, by the way. So, Neil, you've got 2 here, right?
Yeah.
There is 9 PH Stevens. I've checked it. There is 1 V Steven. If you get if you name the V Steven, Dom wins the game wholesale.
If I name the V one by mistake.
If you name the V1 by mistake, I'm going to give the entire game to Dom. Yeah,
just
because otherwise Otherwise we're playing for nothing here.
It's all right. I just won't do that then. I just won't do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'll answer the question properly.
Yeah, I suddenly thought of 2 in my head. So
okay.
So the P ones are Stephen Wright and Stephen Warnock.
Beautiful.
They're the only 2 I've got.
Those weren't the 2 I had.
Oh, we could have had a 4 on a team.
It was Stephen Elliott and Stephen Bywater.
Sleeves and the artist formerly known as Stephen Bywater. Yep, correct. What do
four.
we
How
want
many did you say
to?
there were?
That's 4 out of 9. There's 9. Yeah. One of them you see occasionally tweeting about being a physio. I think we got him from Villa, and then he, with no disrespect to this particular Stephen, his career trajectory tailed off pretty significantly. Left back, possibly Irish.
Froggatt.
Steve Froggatt is one of the Steve. Yeah, Steve Froggatt is one of the Stevens. Oh, I mean that's not what I'd be talking about if that was you know that we'd be you know what we'd be talking about.
I don't know how I ended up there, but
Steve
yeah.
Froggatt. No, but Stephen Froggatt is one. Steve. Wow. So I wonder whether Steve Staunton has been bestowed with Steve powers as
I
opposed
think
to
he's a
Stephen.
Villa, isn't he?
But that he's not the Villa that I was thinking of. But he has been classed officially as a Steve, along with Steve Jennings. I don't know. Yeah, and Steve Ogrizovic. I don't know what makes them Steves as opposed to Stevens on this, but they are officially Steves for the purposes of this. Any final advances on either the PH Stevens or the V Stephen that would have been the killer?
I know the V Stephen. I'll say that once all the P's are out of the way.
So you're missing Stephen O'Halloran.
Oh,
you've got Froggatt. You've got Warnock. You're missing Stephen Hughes. Paul Knowles' favourite player.
Yeah.
Bywater, Wright, O'Halloran, Stephen Elliott, and Stephen Hunt.
Hunt. Oh God, that epic.
Leaving us simply to say Stephen with a V.
Our friend Mr. Presley.
It's Prezels, of course. It's Prezels. Right, lovely. Okay. I mean, that's a game, isn't it?
That is a game.
Yeah.
Now I know. It's very handy to have a pen and paper in front of you, by the way. That's just a trick I've learned in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, likewise. It's very good to have a sort of one of them sort of Jiffy Pack envelopes that's very difficult to write on and a pen that's not easy to write with at the best times anyway. Right, okay, so that's that. Right, any final thoughts before we wander off into the sunset for another month?
No thoughts, no.
No thoughts, lovely old business. Dom, remind people of where your fabulous blogs are.
It's sidewayssammy.com.
Perfect. I think that's everything, guys. Thank you, Victor Jokeres, for everything. Separately, thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dom.
Cheers, it was a pleasure.
And we will speak to you next month. Bye.